Michelle and Nicholas, you're breaking into the market. You got some questions. What are you doing? And let us all hear about it. And maybe we know a guy or a gal who can help, or we ourselves can help. What are you working on? Who will speak first?
So I met Michelle a little bit over a year ago.
Which one?
Michelle Mitchell, yeah, through a mutual friend, and as Joe's pointed out, I worked a long career, say semi-long career for my age, I guess, with a Fortune 500 company. I lived across country from my family, and I was looking to head back closer, to have a second child and so on and so forth. So we became friends. We started talking. She's been in the medical device field for a long time. I'm very new, and we kind of just hit it off. I was looking to make some changes in my life, and my background is in sales and marketing. Her background is with obviously, working with medical devices, and she was telling me about how the U.S. market's really been flooded with a lot of different companies, a lot of different devices entering the market. The quality, of course, has been dropping. There's, as companies are searching for, less expensive options, the quality really deteriorates, and that just unravels a whole slew of different issues. So we kind of put our heads together, and I said, well, I can sell, and I can help with marketing. And if you know about devices, or if you know about, the gaps in the device world, why don't we put our heads together and think of a way that we could solve the problem, or at least, bring in some better quality, better devices, and enter the market somehow. I mean, it just really started, I'll just plain and simple, just a simple idea to maybe, challenge ourselves with doing this. And that kind of took us down a rabbit hole of, well, should we design our own device? Should we add new features? Should we, what features are more important? That took us down the whole regulatory rabbit hole, and design and money and investments and research. And so we kind of took a pivot, and we decided, instead of going down that path, why don't we find something that would benefit the market here that is already established, possibly in different markets, and see how we can bring it to this market. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're thinking, we've kind of identified one product, which is a DVT prophylaxis device. If you guys are familiar with this is a pump with a garment or sleeve that a patient would place over their limb, particularly in an acute setting. So it'd be,
Well, this is deep vein thrombosis.
yep, deep vein thrombosis. It's typically
A
used in
prototype or anything we can look at for those who are visual?
yeah. So as far as the currently on the market, or you're talking about what we're looking at right now?
What you're looking at right now.
We don't have it up yet. We don't have a display. I guess, Michelle, do you think?
Well, so let me just talk about this device a little bit. So like Nick said, that we just met a little bit over a year ago. My previous life, I was a software developer for 28 years. And then I'm just tired of that, so I moved on to medical device. But my area of focus is more on product development as well as regulatory compliance. And I'm not so much into sales because I do not have that kind of talent. So when I met Nick, then I think it's a really good partnership between Nick and I, so we can expand my consulting, and then he also can continue his sales talent. So this particular product Nick is going to talk about is currently sold in Australia. And last night we just got an email about a tender in Western Australia. They want 11,000 pumps and like 50-some thousand garments every year, but that's a tender for 5 to 7 years. So that's really our this particular device is really hot in Australia. And also in Europe, we have quite a few countries, clients that they are evaluating this, but this particular device is not sold in the US. However, it is 510(k) clear. So Michelle Lott would know what I'm talking about. And later on, we will have to, reach out to Michelle Lott to ask for help and expertise as to how to, deal with FDA on this particular device. But go back to the device. It is a pump, and then I don't know.
So it's
Do you
presently
just
being
want to look at
sold
a
in Australia?
picture, or what are you looking for?
Well, it's presently being sold in Australia.
Yes.
What is the name of the company?
You're talking about the company in Australia or the
Yes, please.
manufacturer? I'm sorry?
The company in Australia. What is it?
Um, it is sort of commercial confidential. I don't know if I can disclose that without having an okay from the manufacturers. I'm sorry.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just again, because I'm visual and perhaps someone else on the call is, I'm sharing my screen. I just typed in deep vein thrombosis Australia. Perhaps if you can guide me around to anything that might be relevant for us to look at.
So yeah, there's some major, or some of the, there's already this established market, right? So there are some competitors in the United States already that you could look at. If you just put in intermittent pneumatic compression.
So right now, Nick, I think right now in the US market, the two big suppliers to this device are Arjo Huntley, which is a UK company, but they're international. Also Cano Health, which also known as Covidien in the previous slide before part of it was merged into Medtronic.
Does this look like it? Or this?
Yeah, yep.
Look at the second picture. The
This?
second picture, yeah, that one is from Cano Health. And yeah.
Okay.
Or the fourth pictures give you a better view of that. Yeah, that one is from Cano Health.
Okay.
So it used to call Covidien, right?
Yeah.
So our product is very similar to that, because DVT basically just to pump your lower extremities to promote the velocity of the blood flow to prevent blood clot, because blood clot post-surgery is very common occurrence. So that's why this is a very nice system. Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at this short video from Covidien with their smart compression device. Before we talk about points of difference and the like, pardon me, about like marketing and how you would overcome such a big player like this, is there anything quote unquote wrong or inferior about the Covidien product that you feel the Australian product is the one that is the better product? Is there a reason to believe that?
So the mechanical of this machine actually is very simple. It just helping the blood flow. So it didn't really have a lot of like extra function, and everything is preset down to the pressure and the inflation deflation time. So right now, really the competitive edge is that your pricing and your service, and how are you gonna work with your potential client, provide them better value. Because if you look at right now, there's about 10, 12 manufacturers in the market, but in the US, the most popular one is this Cano Health, SCD, and Arjo Huntley's Flowtron, either the 900 or the 600. 600 is the older model. So then both are very expensive. And
yeah, so we understand the value proposition, right, is either you offer the same benefits at a lower price, or you offer more benefits at the same price, right? That's the basic.
And you're going in with same benefits at a lower price?
Essentially, yeah. And so there's also some other things like, there's a study last year in 2022 or 2 years ago now. They were looking at hospitals and prophylaxis, and for DVT, they found out that only 50% of hospitals in the United States are offering proper prophylaxis. So there might be some market growth. Again, that's hard to imagine considering there's such a huge dominance by these big distributors. But you've got another fact. So by 2030, they estimate that the market for DVT prophylaxis will double in the next 5 years. So that's one thing that we're looking at. And DVT is a serious issue. 1 in 4 deaths in the United States is related to DVT. It's still very high up there.
That sounds implausible to me.
Yeah, so I think if you go to the CDC, or sorry, the CDC, yeah, the AHA, if you just type in DVT prophylaxis 1 in 4, I think it's on their little statistic that they give out. It's related to DVT, right? Because the thrombosis is what leads to pulmonary embolisms. When you're thinking of anything that has to do with coagulation of blood, like for example, there's a lot of research on spike proteins. There's which is more recent. They're seeing a lot more coagulation. If you remember during COVID, they were talking about how they're noticing thickening of people's blood.
Dr. Sue, that's something that you typed in. Can you add some color here?
Yeah, it's standard procedure when I worked in a hospital for many years as a pharmacist, but as a clinical pharmacist, so we work side by sides next to the doctors. So after post-surgery, you go and you go on rounds every morning, and there's a checklist of things, their oxygen, and on the stats, one of the questions is DVT prophylaxis, yes or no. So you always see them, with the manual devices. But a lot of times, unfortunately, like the nurse will unhook it and forget to put it back on the patient. So during rounds, constantly you have to remind the nurses to put the compression devices back onto the patients.
Okay, but that seems device agnostic. Like if nurses are forgetting to do something, they're going to forget to do it with Cardinal or with Joe.
Right, it is.
So
nothing to do with it.
Nothing there from an angle standpoint, because so far,
yeah,
all I've really heard Nick say is we can do it cheaper. And I don't think we can do it cheaper to be colorful means shit when your competitor is Cardinal Health, a major distributor of lots of things with lots of contracts. And Nicholas is going to say, hey, hospital value committee, analysis committee, we have something like that. It's cheaper. You could save like 20% on that one thing. So can we be a vendor and disrupt your long-standing relationship with Cardinal Health? And they're going to be like, isn't that cute? I don't.
yeah.
So
I don't see it. I mean, there's GCO contracts, IDN contracts. You're not offering anything value differentiated in the marketplace, especially with these big companies. So the ones you mentioned are big companies. It's probably a pretty commoditized product at this point. So not to burst your bubble, but and then how are you going to sell it? Who are you going to distribute to? You're going to find a secondary distributor and they're going to try to compete because there's all these back end rebates that they offer if they stop using this product. I mean,
right.
how are you going to
outlast you? Like just undercut the price long enough for Nick to go away. So Rick Stockton wrote, improvement would be an alarm if the device is off for more than 20 minutes. And while that's true, Cardinal Health can do that with the resources that they have. So what? Now, Nick and I have spoken weeks and weeks ago, and I challenged him to give me a value prop that was, tighter and tighter. And I knew coming into today that I was already a bit skeptical. It reminds a couple of years ago when the LinkedIn group was extremely vibrant, I would get questions like, Joe, can you help me bring this to market? Can you this? Can you that? And sometimes I would hear the value prop and be like, I don't see it. And I don't want to like crush the soul of these people and tell them that. And I was on stage, I was moderating something, and I asked some VCs and other respected individuals, what do I do in that case? Like when somebody comes to me with that. And without hesitation, they all said, again, being colorful, crush their spirit because they're just going to spend time and years on something that is not going to make it. Now, I'm not declaring that you're just not going to make it. There's more that you've to share, but so far, all I've heard is Me Too cheaper against major players. And I'm like, okay, I wouldn't want to bet on that for my living, not with young Sophia looking for food and a college education.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so the odds have never been great, right? For David versus Goliath. But if you were crazy enough to try, what would you do? Where would you start? Has anybody like
Go ahead. Olifanke. Huh? Did I pronounce it properly? Take
Yeah,
yourself. You wrote something.
just say Olu. Just say Olu. Everyone calls me Olu. It's easier.
Olu.
But
Yes.
the funke is the fun part. But go ahead, Olu.
Okay. No, I was just sharing. I was agreeing with what Sue had said that yeah, there's no excuse for the nurses not doing their checks. I mean, absolutely no excuse. Typically before, even surgery or if it's people who are in rehab, their surgeons or whomever is going to be, operating on them would have done some type of teaching, right? To let them know, you have to stop saying medications, just explaining to them, things that can happen during the surgery and or after surgery, especially if they're not ambulating, moving around. So yeah, there's really no excuse for the nurses not doing that. I'm sorry.
But you wrote here that you're a nurse, by the way, although you
Yes,
don't,
yes.
but you keep your license active. What are you doing now? I know you're also in transition a bit, but
Yeah, that I'm just doing quality and regulatory stuff. So
okay.
yeah.
So
Did
Nick,
get her PhD in it.
Oh gosh, yes. Yes.
oh, Dr. Bundo.
Oh Lord. Okay, Joe.
Okay, fair enough. So Nick, you've challenged me privately on this as well. You said, yes, but what if we were crazy enough to try? And to me, that's asking, all right, what kind of, indulge me, smoke and mirrors can we market to convince people to do it anyhow? And that is a great Charlie Tate question. It's a great week that he joined us. He gets on the phone and he makes calls and he tries to convince people to do stuff. Mr. Tate, if you will unmute. You've got this value prop. This Australian device is coming to market. It's 510 cleared and it's cheaper than the incumbent that you already have on hand. What would you do?
I think I'd probably stay away from the hospitals, even though that's the biggest play, because what the other folks were saying about trying to beat Cardinal and IDNs and everything else. And then everybody says, well, there's a 10% carve out, but to actually get that is really impossible for sort of a commodity product. There may be a play for at-home use with DME. And if you're looking at maybe a reprocessing to do it yourself, if these things can be utilized, I'm not sure if this one's
more clearly. A reprocessing to do it yourself. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is something that could be sent home because there's a lot of competitive products that will go home with the patient for a period of time. They'll keep it for a month and then it goes back and it gets reprocessed and goes to another customer. That's an area that you could probably get some traction because the players aren't as big. Obviously, your volume won't be as big either.
If I'm not mistaken, the reprocessing market is a service, not a product. You're taking whatever has been used and I don't know, sterilizing it and sending it out again. I'm going to put Jan on because she knows a thing or two about sterilization and packaging. Am I right, Charlie? Is that?
Yeah, and some of them are disposable. So the leg parts themselves, the disposable part, or they can be used for a few times. And where it's at, it's not truly sterilized; it's more clean. So there's some different variations, but this type of device is being used in the home market, and that may be a play where I don't think the hospital market is.
And I would say that
Yes.
sterilization is not gonna, they want to bring a product, that you want to sell products, not services. Am I right, Nicholas and Michelle?
Essentially, yes.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. I think you really give us a good idea. Yes, this particular system comes with a pump and bunch of sleeves, and the sleeve is a single patient use, meaning is almost disposable. If we use it on Michelle, we cannot use it on Nick, But if we only use on Michelle, maybe we can use it for 2 days or 3 days. And this particular system, generally, for the most part, is utilized in the hospital setting pre and post-op. But in rare cases that with doctor script, with a physician script, you can also have one at home, but that's a very rare. And then you also mentioned, instead of try to go head to head with Cardinal Health or Arjo Huntley, we should look for a smaller outfits. And I think Nick and I been back and forth, like, what should we do? And then that's one of the options we have talked about. So, but thank you, Charlie, for, all your suggestions.
Jan, I brought you on. Did you have anything you wanted to add about the repackaging market?
It's being used by some people, but it's tricky. And especially if this home market you were talking about, if you can only use the thing for 1 or 2 days, people aren't going to do that at home. So you're going to have some problems there. And that's why a hospital would be a better setting for it. At least the nurses will generally change it when it needs to be changed. So the way they've been rushed about and having problems keeping enough people in, I'm not sure they would keep it clean. And if you're going to have some problems with patients and sterilization or keeping the thing clean enough for other people to use, you're going to run into problems.
Rick Stockton, you've been actively typing, and my gleaning of what you've written have largely been product improvements, if I'm not mistaken. You can take yourself off mute. And I don't know how a product improvement is gonna one-up somebody who can do the same product improvement. I just don't see a competitive advantage here.
Well, there are 2 things that I think of. I think of actual product improvements, but you're right. The bigger guys will often be able to get there a little quicker because they can just put a task on it or hire somebody like me to fix it. But one thing you can do is your customer interface. For instance, when I started having a link somebody could hit, and they could know just what work was being done on a project and when it was being done and where we were on the project and what was, the calls to, and I started doing that about 4 or 5 years into my practice, and surprised calls from people who were unsure about cost or anything like that, well, they just vanished. And so if you can find a better way to deal with your clients so that they feel like they're informed, they feel like you're being transparent, they feel like they have a relationship with you rather than you're just selling them something, a lot of times that's better than a product improvement.
And I would also caution about IP issues in this case, especially if it is a device that's out somewhere and it's very similar to something already on the market by a big player. At the minimum, you have to look at what active IP Cardinal Health has at the minimum, right? And see whether it covers this device. And if it covers it, you can have product improvements. They would still be, if the basic device is infringing the claims, then even if you add improvements to it, it would still be infringing. So you have to be very careful because they will come after you if you're taking market share.
which is
Yes,
fine.
thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Does
Sean,
anybody have any example of, or does anybody know of a product in a similar situation that the value analysis committee has accepted or went outside of Cardinal or Medline or any of these big names?
I'm sorry, the question is what?
Is there an example? Does anybody know of an example of a product that maybe has gone
Head to head with Cardinal and one?
Yeah, usually it's products that are not commodities, something that has some really unique value that the doctors say, we need this because we can't get it any other way. Outside of that, it's very, very challenging, even based on price, because as some of the other panelists said, there's lots of contracts and rebates to compensate for any price differences.
Got it. So then stay away from the key or from the so maybe just try to target only places that these companies don't have a dominance, essentially. I'd have
which
to
will be very challenging to find.
Yeah, right.
The other thing that you run into, which sounds funny, but the big names also have big war chests for when they get sued. And the doctors know that, and it helps keep them protected because then the people go after the companies instead of the doctors themselves.
That's a good point.
Sean, that face cannot go ignored. What did that grimace mean?
That's a horrifying statement.
What is a horrifying statement?
About the war chests.
Yeah, I worked for a small company that got big and watched how that war chest grew. It was amazing.
Oh, okay. So I have a couple thoughts. Someone else mentioned nursing home or rehab hospital or retirement homes. Would they have any need for this product, or is it simply right after surgery?
So, Sean, I like that idea. Nursing homes, bed sores, whole new claim, limited mobility, uh, patients, laying in bed all day, all week, all month. This could help, move fluids and pump. That sounds like a nice area to go. But
Extreme extremities have problems for diabetics, for example. So
yeah,
you could approach the diabetic institutes and those doctors. That's how people lose limbs.
yes.
Okay. So moving in a slightly different direction. Up to this point, we've been primarily talking about push marketing strategies, which is how are you going to penetrate the market? And the opposite of a push marketing strategy is a pull marketing strategy, where the customer pulls the product through the channel. The end user says, I want this. And that's effectively the way that direct-to-consumer advertising works in pharma, is they're relying on the patient to go to their doctor and say, tell me about this new medication. Tell me about this new treatment, right? And so doing an end run and saying, fine, we're not going to go against Covidien. In this sense, we're going to start a grassroots campaign around, for example, people with diabetes. Then you combine that with a crossing the chasm approach, where you decide, okay, I'm not going to try to take on Covidien in the entire market, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to target nursing homes, for example. And all I'm trying to do is build a brand within the nursing home community, right? And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to educate the nursing home community about this fine alternative that is less expensive to them than the leading brand. I think that these communities are very price sensitive. I think that there is room to make a price sensitive argument. And so what I would say is why, if I had to differentiate your product, I would come at it from the perspective of, okay, we have a product that is ideal for patients with bed sores, with limited mobility, with diabetes, with nursing home. In the nursing home setting, it's less expensive and the customer service is better, right? You're gonna get an actual person, you're gonna get an actual and you're going to get hands-on training or you're going to get whatever. The third part that I would do is come at this through LinkedIn. What I can tell you about Covidian and all of the other Fortune 500 companies is that they're more or less ignoring LinkedIn. And they're not taking advantage of the fact that if you want to reach the majority of people in the world, they're still doing direct mail. They're still sending somebody out there to knock on doors and be like, here's your sales rep, and he covers your territory or she covers your territory, and they're going to come in and they're going to do this. If you want to be different, you need to be different. Apple does not make better products than other companies do, but people believe that they do.
Because they spend a lot of money. So let me ask you, because Nicholas has asked me this as well. How much would it cost for a consultant to come in and help us sell this through? So forget that he's friend of Joe and a MDG premium member. If Michelle and Nicholas called you and told you what you've learned these last 40 minutes, and they said, hey, how much would it cost to engage you to help us do what you just said, Sean? What would you say you charge? I'm going to ask the same of Charlie.
You want me to say
Yeah, I
numbers?
want you to quote on the spot on air how much you would ask them for, so they can have a realistic, because as I understand it, right now, Michelle and Nick are running on their own dime. It looks like Nick dropped off somehow.
Yeah, actually, I just got disconnected, but it reconnected me back. So I'm not sure if that happened to Nick as well. So I'm not sure.
Weird.
But
I didn't think
yeah.
so. But I'm not mistaken that you don't have funding right now, besides what you and he are kicking in yourselves, right? Michelle?
I'm sorry?
I
Yeah.
believe that you and Nicholas's enterprise is self-funded exclusively.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to go into your savings and Nick into his savings to pay Sean how much a month?
No, I don't know if we can afford anybody.
Well, that's alarming. Because if it's just the two of you, I mean, Charlie, the least you would do, I would think, if this is going to be a marketing push thing, is you're going to need people contacting people. And there's just so many phone calls you and Nick can make in a given day. So you hire just one person to make some outbound phone calls for you to see if the market is interested. So Charlie, how much does it cost to engage you for the month to help push this product to market?
Yeah, two things. First, the fee is about $8,500 a month, but I would not take this product because I don't think I can give you the rate of return you're looking for. I've worked with similar products to this, and it's very, very challenged to get traction. So me personally, I don't have a way in which we could sell enough that you'd be happy with the ROI for the fee you would give us.
I would say the same
Thank
for
you.
me. How about you, Sean?
I'm a firm believer in the patron saint of lost causes. So St. Jude.
Nice. Wow. Okay.
And so I would come at this from the perspective of rather the odds are definitely stacked against you. and therefore you need to be smarter, more creative, and you need to pick a strategy and you need to stick to it. I would say that I would be willing to meet with you to discuss this for free for 1 hour, and to talk about the possibility of moving it forward. My monthly fee would be based on ability to pay and the results that we get from the initial calls that we do. The advantage that you have from hiring somebody like me is that I don't work for the company and I can come across as an independent third party who is asking them what their willingness is to look at a product that is not cardinal in this area, and to reach the people and to find the decision makers and possibly get you meetings with them. I think that this is very strategic, very theoretical at this point. There are a lot of unanswered questions that I have. And therefore, Joe, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but committing to a number to someone who has just told me, I don't know if we can pay anything,
Right.
I don't see the point. I am willing to help. I'm happy to help. And I'm happy to give you ideas for free. I always say ideas are free. You want me to spend hours of my time doing research and calls, you have to pay me.
Right.
Um,
Mark Matthews was kind enough to share a concept. I just found the link and put it in. He's on a train, so he cannot talk, but he said that, let's see, cardiola, I don't know, tried something like this for 10 years, did not work. Counter pulsation by triggered electrical stimulation of leg. So give that a look.
Thank you.
Swiss company, he said.
Yeah. So Nick dropped off a little bit, so I just want to quickly tell Nick that Nick, I think we should definitely reach out to Sean because he offered us 1 hour free consultation, and then maybe we can discuss with Sean in further details as to what other lines of product we could potentially bring into the market. And so I think Sean can give us some very valuable guidance.
Charlie,
So,
Nick was off the line when you said, I asked Charlie, I was saying to Michelle, since you have no funding except self-funding, there's just so many outbound calls you guys can make, how many retouches you could make. The first person you would likely hire is at least someone who could make calls for you. That's what Charlie does for a living. And I asked him how much he charges monthly to do that. Charlie, would you repeat your answer?
Yeah, it's about $8,500 a month. But the second part of it was, this is something I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing on because I don't think I can give you the rate of return you're looking for. I can give you some traction, but it's not going to be enough. Um, we've done some products like this in the past. We
Define
had
like
some
this.
pardon?
Define like this.
It was almost a knockoff of this. And it
It was
was,
this product. It was a deep vein thrombosis
yes,
product. Oh,
yes.
wow. What can you tell us who that, if it's not inappropriate?
They're gone now. It was about 4 years ago, and I don't even think they're in the market anymore. And it was something that how they chose to do it. They chose to do it with because a lot of times patients will get a script to have this at their home for 30 days. And that was something that there was some traction there, but it wasn't enough because then you had a lot of logistics about getting the device back, cleaning it up. The parts that were on the legs themselves were disposable, but the rest of it still had to be cleaned up, packaged, and brought back. So there's some logistics involved. We tried selling it to hospitals, but we have the same problem that were already mentioned, going against Cardinal and other things like that.
Do you recall, even roughly, when you took the project, you believed you might be able to deliver, an ROI for them. What kind of margins were they looking at? They didn't achieve them, but what did they think they could make?
Well, they were looking for, so basically, I was working with a customer on something else, and I had my doubts about it right from the start. And it was a very limited structure. They wanted us to call 250 targets, and from that to figure out what we can get. And they were looking at, I don't recall it. We came not even close, and my expectation, the project achieved what I thought it was going to come from it, and it was not a success. So and that was us. Maybe there are other ways of doing it. Sean seems to have some great ideas, and that's great. I'm not saying we're the only camp out here, but we went through more of a traditional means, and it's very challenging. It's kind of like a Me Too product. There's a lot out there. Just Google all the different devices. There are a lot of them out there, and just price usually is not enough in healthcare.
Charlie, where are you located?
I'm in Bristol, Rhode Island,
Oh,
just south of.
Isn't that funny? So I just Googled you, and the photograph of the person living in your space is presumably you from, I don't know, 15 years ago. I was like, that's not the same guy.
Really?
This doesn't
No,
look.
it was witness protection. Be careful, will you?
All right.
So
Can I
I'm
ask,
an older guy with younger kids. So 15
you
years,
go.
I've dated a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I ask a question of Michelle, maybe Nick, but early on you said you had 510K clearance on this product, but you've not introduced it in America. Can you talk about that a little bit? My second question is that you have a big tender in Australia or something, which sounds like
Yes.
how can you meet that demand? But the 510K question?
Okay, so maybe I need to make it clear. I work for a manufacturer in a consulting capacity, mostly regulatory compliance and product design and facilitating a lot of technical meetings. So I travel a lot for this company. I also work with other company, but primarily my focus is on this one manufacturer. So this product was CE marked, and it is class 2A devices in the EU and the UK. So it's been, because this company's focus is more in European market and Australia, knowing in the US, because of the insurance and the reimbursement, most people are looking for something cheap. The quality almost like not a primary concern. Pricing is the number one concern. And this manufacturer knows that because they have done some business with some big distributors in the US. So that's why they decided to go for European market and Australia first. And then, so they got CE mark about 10 years ago. And just about 5-6 years ago, they said, well, in order to bring it to the US, maybe we should get a 510K clear, just in case if they want to do that. So their 510K was clear in 2019. And then they start to, prepare the commercial material, and then COVID hit. So, with the restriction of traveling and visiting people, so that thing didn't really take off as they wanted to, because basically 3 years of inaction. And now we sort of back to normal somewhat. So they decided that should we give it another try? And they talked to me about it, say, can you find somebody in the US to help with this? And that's how I happened to get to know Nick. And I say, maybe I can get you somebody to help. And so I work for this particular company as a consultant for the last, this is my 10th year with them. So I went through the product development, the CE marking, the 510K clearance. So I know probably a little more than I want to about this product. And but I don't have the sales skill because I am a, I train as an engineer, a software developer, so I don't really have sales skill. So that's why we're not selling in the US yet. That's because a lot of things, and COVID really put them 3 years behind. So
no, great, thank you. That helped clarify quite a bit.
Dan, you wrote something in the comments?
Me, I just, with all this talk, because everybody worries about the product so much, I'm worried about the packaging, and it's making me nervous about what your packaging and labeling looks like, because believe it or not, that is the biggest recall item that happens in the US.
packaging. Okay.
Packaging
Thank
and
you.
labeling.
Thank you.
So not to put too fine a point on it, show of hands, if you would invest in this company and this concept. God bless you, Nicholas. We gathered 24 people to tell you what they thought, and I believe they all said, for God's sakes, man, you have a young family. Please save yourself. So I'd like to conclude with, let's say you give it another year and you find yourself here in a year. Where do you pivot? Have you guys talked about what else you can do, or how else you can, begin to achieve your goal if in a year's time you find that you're right where we are right now?
Well, this isn't our only option, right? This is just the one that we've chosen for now. And we like the idea that it's already gaining traction in other markets. So maybe that will matter, when we are speaking with people. We do have some other ideas as backups. We just think this is the strongest one right now. But each product has a different market. This market is the acute care, right? We have some other markets that are more geared towards home care. So if we need to pivot, we may find that out.
But is the thing in common for your pivot taking a product sold overseas and bringing it to the United States?
Well, our initial idea was to, design something better, but that seems to be a very hard space to play in. So maybe not go that route. Yeah, so to answer your question, essentially, yes.
Okay. And are any of the things you're considering unmatched? There's no product in the United States?
There's a couple things we're looking at where the technology hasn't got here yet. So, we can think about those, but.
Well, of course, I have, well, not of course, but when I take on a project, I've shared this with you. There are 3 questions I need answered first. What is the customer need that is so great that they cannot sleep? The second is, what is your source of volume? Is it stealing share like Progressive from Geico, or is it a brand new product like the first iPod? And if you're talking about, well, there are potentially new iPods that America's not seen, it could be argued that that's an even more expensive value prop, because first you need to educate the entire community about why this non-existing product is something that everyone needs, because they got on this long without it. I don't think we have an easy answer here for either of these things.
I definitely appreciate everyone's time and input, and it definitely helps shape our next direction and all of the thought that you guys have put into or have given us. So appreciate that.
The 2 of you are coming to California where you can meet some of these fine people in person.
Yeah, that's the plan. We're still sorting through this year, but that's the plan.
All right. Well, I can tell you at a minimum, there will be an ice cream ROI. for the,
That's
and Rick knows this. He's had, I think, 7 ice creams now. Well, this will be his 7th ice cream. I'm not sure.
And unfortunately, Joe has pictures to prove some of those
Yes,
occasions.
that's right. It was the unfortunate one that largely ended up on your shirt.
They are not flattering. And Joe, your next check will be on time next month.
Lovely. Lovely that. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's see. Next week, what are we talking about next week? Next week, we are talking with no one. No, next week I don't have scheduled yet, so we'll see about that. In 2 weeks, we're doing this again, I think, with a young lady who was going to speak today, but strep throat prevented her from doing so. So Nicholas and Michelle, thanks for stepping in and moving your session up. For Joe Hage and Joe Hage Enterprises, this has been Joe Hage. Have a great day. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.